What's up, everybody, and welcome to Drink and Grow Rich, the dumbest smart show on the internet.
This one's on me, let's go downtown tonight. One shot, two shots, I don't really know if I'm counting right. We drink it down so we can live it up. Why? Cause you never know what tomorrow brings in this crazy life. Hey, this life, this life, this life, this life.
What up, everybody?
We are live.
We're live. We're live on Facebook. We're live on YouTube. And we are live on Instagram. I have an awesome guest today, Seth. I'm looking for his invite here. There he is. Got to turn it down on here. And we are rocking. Seth, what's up, man? How are you?
Good. I don't know where to look. I got cameras everywhere now.
Yeah. So look at the Instagram is to the side. And dude, so first of all, cheers. This is essentially, I have a podcast called The Sean Lowry Show, and it's a little more polished than the Friday show, which is drinking and talking. So cheers. Put it up, Pat. Cheers.
Cheers.
All right, Seth. One, what are you drinking? And two, tell us about yourself.
I'm drinking rum and Coke.
Rum and Coke. Woo!
Yeah. Just going light. So
I like your style.
So I run a branding agency that focuses heavily on storytelling, and we work with startups to help them communicate their value to the marketplace, essentially. And we have an overall vision of helping startups reduce the failure rate. The often quoted 90%. We think that we can reduce that by 10%. And we think that would
just through branding. It doesn't matter about the product.
No, I think it's all about communication, right? Like, how do you communicate to investors? How do you communicate to the marketplace? And how do you communicate in a way that people go, oh, I get why the fuck I should care about your product, right? Like,
right.
What we often see is we see these startups that, brilliant minds, great at technical things, great at software, and great at coming up with these, visions and brilliant ideas, but then they're not communicating them well, right? And this has come from us working with over 100 startups, and out of that, we've only seen 2 startups do an exit, one that was a good one, and one that was basically like a hostile takeover. So after going through this, it's like, I'm like, is 90% even accurate? Is the number higher?
A failure rate you're talking about. Failure rate.
Yeah, exactly. So,
wow.
So a lot of it like I was saying, a lot of it comes down to communication. Like, we'll see these giant decks of like 100 slides, and they're like, blah, 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 these numbers and this stuff and all this information. And it's like, nobody cares, right? Like it's important after they care, right? Like, you have to tell the story first about why this product or service should exist, or why this company should exist. That's what gets investors interested in. Well, tell me more. Show me how you're going to make this profitable. But we often see these like 100 slide decks with like too much information, too much data. And if you don't tell a story and you don't create any kind of emotion in people, they won't take action. And I talk about that a lot in the book, How to Hack Humans.
Yeah. So How to Hack Humans. I love that. So I want to break this down a lot. First of all, though, what's all right? So stories, branding, business. Give the people some examples of a story that everybody knows about a business. Like, who's the best at this? Who's the best company at telling their product, their brand through a story?
Okay, so some good examples of this are Chick-fil-A. They're great at basically not talking about how they care about their customers, but actually showing it, right? Apple has created a great story about how they're so rebellious and forward-thinking and so on and so forth. There's lots of examples.
I feel like Coca-Cola would be a good one when it comes to this.
Pat, what's their story?
Well, they're always like on top of their marketing game, and it feels like I learned about this earlier, but I forget the reason why. But the trend that they start whenever they when they market their products, everyone seems to follow along with it. It's kind of like a cutthroat game. When they kind of develop, it was like a bunch of people atop of a hill, and it was like coming together around the Coke can or something like that.
Okay.
Seth, do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
You might know a bit more about it than I do, but
their story quite often focuses on community, like
community
have a Coke with your friend,
right?
Like
right.
that is, it's the holiday time. What are you going to do? You're going to get together with your family and you're going to drink our product, you suckers.
Right. And then
okay, go ahead.
What I was like elaborating on, it's like they try to install that sense of community, and then now you walk into the gas station and you see like a Dr. Pepper can with someone's name on it, and they have like rows of them, or like Bud Light, this Bud's for you, something like that. But it was originated around Coca-Cola.
Yeah, they were just
so that's not a brand story about how the brand started. Is that what you mean by storytelling through a brand, that you know the story of the brand, or is it more deep than that, like a community with Coke?
Well, so understanding your brand story helps guide your actions, right? So if you're like, well, we're about community, what would instill more community? Well, let's make some commercials about community, right? Like, well, what else could we do? Well, how do we involve people in our brand? Well, let's print their names on Coke cans, right?
Right.
Like, this is so understanding the way that we look at it and talk about it is that really your story is at the core of your brand. Your story is also what creates your culture. We are this type of company. This is what we believe, right? That's the story that everybody tells themselves. That creates the culture. And the culture influences the decisions and all the other stuff, but it also affects the brand. And an easy way to look at this is Marty Neumeier said that, like, marketing is what you tell other people and branding is what other people say about you, right? And but the way that I look at it is like brands are essentially like people, right? Like, people dress a certain way, they talk a certain way, they act a certain way, they have certain interests, right? And that creates that whole person, right? And brand.
Hold up, I think we lost you on Instagram.
Oh, I think my phone probably just decided that it was going to sleep.
So. I mean, it shouldn't matter, but yeah, just invite to come in again if you can.
Says I'm here.
I'm talking to the guys on Instagram. I don't see you on there.
You're frozen on my screen, and I see you. Okay.
What?
Well, hold on. I'm just gonna leave, and I'm just gonna
come back in again. But for everyone on Instagram, I'm talking to Seth Erickson, who wrote a book called How to Hack Humans, about the importance of branding in business. View request. All right, we'll get you back in there.
All right.
This is the live life.
All right, I think I'm back. So
okay, I see ya. All right, and you're a little more centered this time.
Right. Yeah, I kind of.
If anyone has any questions for Seth, ask them. I just want to say one thing. If I were the CEO of Chick-fil-A, I have a great idea how to raise their revenue by 17%, and it'll be open on Sundays. But that's off topic.
They have a Chick-fil-A in the Atlanta Falcons stadium.
That's insane.
Where all of their games are on Sunday.
Oh man. Okay. So Coca-Cola, community, branding, the way that you feel when you grab a Coke, family, community, the way that you feel when you use Apple products. Like I have in my ears right now. I feel hip. I feel cool. I have the Apple Watch. I obviously have an iPhone. And I hate people that don't have an iPhone. I'm not racist, but I'm racist against greenies. I call them greenies. The ones that those green text messages that ruin every group chat. And if you don't have service, they don't send. I always get the little red thing next to it. It didn't send. I don't like greenies. I'm a blue supremacist when it comes to text messaging. And that's Apple. That's the community. That's the environment.
Yeah. Well, and so part of your brand is essentially positioning yourself as a leader or a mentor to help move your customers forward, right? Your customers are essentially the heroes of their own story, and you guide them along the path. You're like, this product is a better product, and here's why, right? Like, this product does blue text messages instead of green ones, and so you need to get it. Like it's and so part of the branding is also understanding like your role in the customer's life, right? Like, okay, yeah, we create products, and this kind of goes back to Simon Sinek's why. Like, well, we create
I've
products.
read that book.
Why do we create products? Well, because we are different. We are a different type of company. We have a different type of mindset. And so part of that is understanding the role that you play in the story, right? And lots of companies try to set themselves up as the hero in the customer's story, but really the customer is the hero. What is it? Donald Miller talks a lot about that, but he's right. Like Jonas Sachs talked about it in the book Story Wars, that ultimately a company is always a guide to the hero. You're not actually trying to be the hero in the hero story. You're trying to be
facilitating the hero.
You're Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're not Luke Skywalker,
perfect.
right? Like,
Perfect.
Right.
And so understanding that role also is a part of your brand, right? Because you, like I said, if your brand is like a person, well, how do we come across? How do we talk? How do we communicate with our audience? Do we use humor? Are we serious? Do we, what is the personality? So all of these go into the story that you, as a company or an organization, need to be thinking about. But it's quite often that most companies don't think about this because there's nothing interesting there. Like they're one of 1,000 other companies that all do the same thing. It's like we all do roofing, we all have a tech startup. We all have this thing. Well, what's interesting about that? And so that then gets into stuff like differentiation and positioning, and it all ties together, man. It's a conspiracy.
But and okay, I sell women's clothing. I have a company called United Monograms. It's where are you located? Where do you live?
Texas.
That's our #1 state in sales. It's a very southern product. Do you know what a monogram is? Yeah, it's for girls. They get their initials on their left chest. We have the #1 online monogram shop. It's right behind me here, and our story. So I've read books like this before, and it's kind of we sell to girls, which actually makes it pretty easy as far as the brand voice, because it's half of the population. I hear that. You hear that echo? Do you hear that, Pat?
Oh, is that me?
I hear it
when I read.
Turn down your phone.
Okay, I didn't. Yeah, no, it's not me. I don't know. Sorry.
Yeah, whatever. Okay, and so girls, and we said we started with. All right, God damn it, I can hear that. We started with like an embroidery machine in a mom's basement, and then now it's just like a clothing company. You guys still hear that, don't you?
I hear it.
Yeah, it's echoing through my phone. Let's see. Why is?
Well, we're all hearing it. Pat, you're the producer. What could it be?
Someone's got to have their volume up.
I mean, obviously. So mine volume has one notch, and it won't let me go all the way down.
Yeah, I'm at.
Same with you.
Yeah, one notch.
All right, I'm gonna move this away. I'll move this away a little more. Is this better? This is better, actually. Okay.
Eliminates the echo.
Right. It's the echo. Okay. So we sell clothing, and sometimes I'm just like, the story helps. The brand's doing really well. Is that a good example of a brand story? We know how to talk to our customer. We know what our customer likes. Your monogram, that's your personal logo. That's your thing. That's your personal logo. We know the voice, we know the story, and we facilitate our customers being like the thing that they love. We sell pumpkin and coffee themed monograms. And I feel like, but it doesn't make the company better. It doesn't make the product better. It doesn't make the prices better, but we've had success. How can a gas station use the principles from your book?
A gas station. That's interesting.
I just went totally off topic there, but I've read this before. I've learned about this before. And yeah, a gas station.
A little brainstorming.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what you can do is you can look to connect ideas. Remember the first time your dad took you out driving, right? You had to stop and get gas, right? You connect those memories, those positive feelings. Hopefully it was a positive experience when your dad or mom took you out driving for the first time. So you connect those types of ideas and experiences to the product that you want to sell. And so in that case, if you know your customers are like, yeah, the first time I drove, well, remember the first time that you got to take the car out on your own and you had to stop and get gas because you had to fill it up because your parents were like, don't bring me back a fucking empty tank, and right. So in that case, you might use a little bit of nostalgia, but you're gonna tell a story that your customer can resonate with. That resonating thing that's happening actually creates an emotional event, and then we start to resonate with the brand. It's one of the things that I talked early on about. When people hear stories, they put a bunch of diodes on people, and somebody told a story, and they started to realize that all the people in the audience, if they were engaged in the story, the frequencies of their brains started linking up with the frequency of the storyteller. That's some weird science fiction shit.
That's
right?
It's almost like religious in a way.
Yeah. Well,
there's power in the collective. There's power in group think. It makes you feel evolutionarily. It makes you feel special to be part of a group.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's definitely tribalism. And
I was trying to pitch it in a more positive way, but yeah, tribalism has a negative connotation.
Well,
the collective.
Yeah, the collective.
By the way, I'm off Instagram. It was too annoying.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm more engaged in this.
So there's all these things that are happening in the brain when storytelling is done correctly, right? Like one of the other things that they found is that like 7 different areas of the brain light up when somebody's listening to a story. And the reason that it's starting to light up is because your brain creates a simulation, right? Like you go watch a movie and then you lose time, right? Because you're like, oh, the movie's over. And it's 2 hours later. I didn't notice that, right? Like if the movie's good, if the movie sucks,
right.
Like, why is this movie 2 hours? But what happens is if you're engaged in the movie, you start losing time. And the reason you're losing time is because your brain is starting to create a simulation where it's going, well, if I was in that situation, what would I do? How would I react? Right. And that even happens in like if I just sit down and start telling you a story, your brain is going to start going, putting you in that position. You're going to start imagining it. And in your imagination, you're going to have, you're going to have sight and sound. You're going to have feelings. You're going to have all these things that your brain is basically building in the simulation. And somebody just texted me, what happened to the Instagram feed?
Tell them, tell them to go over to YouTube. Go to YouTube, Sean Lowry, and it's live.
I will send
him that is so true, though. Like, have you ever gone to the movies when it was daytime out and then you go outside and it's pitch black?
Yeah, that's a cool feeling.
It's insane.
Yeah, so
you literally do lose track of time.
Yeah, so we create the simulation in our heads, right? Like this is part of the reason. So the idea behind the book of How to Hack Humans is that basically our brains are like computers. And to give you some examples, like, well, obviously we have memory. That's an easy one.
Yeah.
We have firewalls. It's called bias. Right?
I like that. I like that analogy.
We've got the conscious and the subconscious. That's like Windows and DOS, or
wait, explain that.
and Unix.
So it's like the operating system,
right? So I know you're a Mac guy, so we'll use. So you've got OS X, right? And that's the visual part, right? That's the pretty stuff, the sights and the sounds and the visuals. That is the conscious mind. That's where we see all this stuff. But then a lot of the heavy lifting is happening inside of Unix. That's the part that is unseen unless you're a Unix programmer or know more about it than the average person. That's the part that's actually running a lot of stuff. And what people don't realize is that we think we're like super conscious, right? Because because this conscious part of our brain sees and hears and understands things, but actually most of the processing, most of the heavy lifting is happening in the subconscious. This is where we get things like gut feelings, right?
Oh yeah.
Or we get these ideas that pop out of nowhere and we're like, where did that come from? That's a great idea. Or I never thought about it that way or whatever. That's because your subconscious is running all these processes. It has its own set of processes and logic that it's running. And then it spits the information up to your subconscious, but it doesn't actually talk to your subconscious. So what it does is it gives you a feeling. That's how it communicates. You get a feeling.
In,
you're like, this is a good
in the
feeling or a
computer
bad
analogy, what would be the feeling?
I see. This is honestly like the feelings are what runs the operating system, but I don't have a specific. I haven't come up with a really good specific analogy to.
So we got the memory, which is the memory. We got the firewall, which is the bias, and then we got the operating system, front and back end, which is the conscious and the subconscious mind. That's 4. Did you say there were 7? 7?
Well, 7 parts of the brain, yeah, light up. So I could give you all the names, but they're basically it's like the Wernicke system in this.
Okay, I know, but I'm interested in the computer analogy. I don't. Maybe it's not direct.
So yeah, let me. So here's the thing. Stories are basically programs that are running on your operating system, right? There's stories you tell yourself. There's stories.
And what would be a program on Mac? It was Safari.
Yeah, I mean, it could be anything, right? Like there could be a story about who you are as a person. It could be stories about what other people are in your life. Whoa.
Sorry.
So some of these stories could be big, not to get too far off subject here, but like political beliefs could be a big story, right? A big part of your application.
And a part of the firewall too.
Yeah. That's why people get very emotional and upset about this stuff. Not to say anything more on it, but just as an example. So then the idea of storytelling is really understanding how to write to those applications. Can you write to them? Can you rewrite them? Can you overwrite them? Can you change
programming
them?
like language?
Yeah. So essentially, understanding how to tell stories is the same as being able to write code. So, and this is what all the neuroscience is pointing to.
Wow. So, yeah, from a branding perspective, writing code to get into the subconscious mind of the person that matters, whether it's the investor or the consumer, you need to understand the language to get from the front of their brain to the back of their brain. And that you're saying that language is stories, not data, not charts. It's stories.
Yeah, data, facts and figures only lights up 2 parts of the brain: language, hearing, and comprehension. So the other thing, so look at it this way: if you tell a person a story and they believe the story or they're engaged by the story, 7 different parts of the brain light up. Well, what is that like? Well, that's like having a RAID system, if you know what that means. It's your hard drive duplicates the information across multiple drives.
Okay.
So this is why you can hear a song and be like, oh, that reminds me of something.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Or you can taste something and be like, that reminds me of something. Or somebody says something to you and you go, that reminds me of a story. Right? It's because when all those parts of the brain are being lit up, you're basically duplicating that information around into different parts of the brain. It makes it easier for recall. It makes it easier for you to remember what the person said. And they've done tons of studies on this where they had people stand up, give a bunch of facts and figures, and then ask people to remember what they said, and then had another person stand up and tell a story. And then they asked them, what did you remember about that? And it's like 70% of the people were able to recount the story almost like scene by scene. And only like 20% of the people were able to recount all the facts and figures they were given. Like they just, because not enough of the brain is being engaged in pulling them in. And again, if there's no emotion there, there's no action that's going to be taken, and so that's why you get Sarah McLachlan, singing about these,
the dogs,
these dying pets or whatever at midnight. And people are like, here's my money here,
it lights up. Did you ever read Robert Greene? You know Robert Greene, the author. He 48 Laws of Power. He also wrote a book called Mastery, which is about exactly what you said about you have to become a master in something, and then all of a sudden your subconscious takes over, and you have intuition is much better on that topic. But also in all those books, he tells his facts, and then everything, it's a story. It's an old story from the past, but it helps you recall it. It's he's my favorite author of all time. I had him on my podcast. It was a dream, but
awesome.
It's a story, and it makes you remember it, because you remember the story, then you remember the fact, then you remember the reason why it's important. Yes, it's so true. And I actually, Dave Rubin, he's a political guy. He was on my podcast, and dude, he brought up like 10 movies, and I had seen like 3 of them. But that's another example of, okay, there's this thing I'm trying to say. Can you relate it to this story? Can you relate it to this story? It's a great way to communicate.
Yeah. Well,
right?
Think about it this way. We, before we were painting on cave walls, before we had alphabet, before we had paper, before we had anything printed, we had to communicate, right? We had to be like, do this in the winter time, do this in the summertime, hunt here, don't hunt there.
Yeah.
Eat these berries, not these, right? Like, don't fuck with tigers, they'll kill you, right? Like, so they would tell stories, and that was how we communicated. And so it wasn't just communication, it wasn't just information, it was it wasn't just entertainment, it was information that people needed to survive and continue on. And so, however long we've been here, however we got here, whatever, it doesn't matter. What matters is we have always used story. Before we had any of these other mediums, we had to, right? We had to listen, we had to understand, comprehend, and then pass that information along, generation to generation to generation. And we haven't changed. Like, that's the other thing.
I think this is so powerful.
Skypimp said, I think this is so powerful. An example would be when I meet someone, I can make up a story about their name so I can remember it.
Yeah,
exactly.
Like Mitch is a bitch, so you remember Mitch.
Okay, it's like the middle school
Mitch,
example.
Mitch. All right, now I'm gonna remember Mitch because he's a bitch. Dude. And you know what the best-selling book of all time is?
The Bible.
Yeah. And what's in the Bible?
It is chock full of stories.
Stories.
Yeah.
And that's the moral compass for a lot of people. And I'm not very religious. I actually don't believe in the God from the Bible. Although I gotta say, over the past couple of weeks, I'm a little more religious in general. But the stories, they're good messages in a lot of those stories. And that's what matters. Stories, because examples of why being a good person can make something happen. Why basically that and all the stories. But it's the best-selling book of all time. It's guided people's lives for generations and generations, mostly all of AD, and it's a book of stories.
Yeah,
it's a good example.
Well,
right?
and Jesus used parables to help people understand his concepts. Those are just miniature stories. That's actually part of what I talk about. Fables, parables, proverbs, idioms. These are all short form stories. So it's useful.
I love that.
In anywhere and everywhere.
Yeah. When I was a kid, I had this book. It was Aesop's Book of Fables. It was some fable book. And I remember it was somebody, it was a kid who lied, and it's something about his tongue, so it was like, the message was don't lie. And I always remember, I actually remember the pictures because I was just a kid, but I always remember lying was bad from that story. And that's why it's so powerful. Like, the stories are, it's so cool. It's so cool.
So have you heard of the book Made to Stick?
No.
Okay. It's written by the Heath brothers. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's called Made to Stick. They actually talk about Aesop's fables in that, and how we all have heard the phrase, a bird in the hand is worth 2 in the bush.
A bird in the hand is worth 2. I don't know if I ever heard that. A bird in the hand is worth 2 in the bush.
Okay. Have you heard of sour grapes? Oh, that person just has sour grapes. That's from Aesop's fables. Why is that, like, hundreds upon hundreds of years later, right? they talk about it in the book. There's no marketing campaign for sour grapes, and yet we still have heard it. We know about it. It still exists today. Why is that? Because it's a story. It's a story about a fox that tries to get some grapes, and he's not able to get the grapes, and he doesn't put in the effort. So he just goes, well, those grapes were probably sour anyway, right? He just has a crappy attitude, and he walks away, and he doesn't get his grapes. And and yet hundreds of years later, we still have this, and like you said,
everyone knows what that, I mean,
the Bible,
everyone knows what that means.
Yeah.
It's so powerful.
Yeah. And there, like you said, there's no marketing campaign going, remember sour grapes, no, it's just people pass that information along. Some of these stories almost act like a virus, and that's another thing. I didn't necessarily
not always positive.
No, exactly. There is, and this part I didn't really go into the book. There is a dark side of storytelling. I mean, you get cults and things like that. Like people are using this type of stuff to manipulate other people, and they do. We've seen a lot of stuff in the news where it's like there's a narrative being pushed that's not exactly true, or maybe
I hate different. I hate the news.
Yeah, and so that's where you start to see sometimes storytelling kind of go awry and being used against people. So
it's the same principle.
Yeah,
it's that it works. It's just negative because they're telling a negative story that is actually the intention of it is to propaganda. Essentially, Hitler was a great storyteller. Hitler was amazing at communicating with the public and telling stories. Not the best guy. So that just shows that stories are powerful. Dang, I never actually thought about the negative. What are some other negative stories?
Well, like I said, I mean, propaganda is a great example, right? But cult leaders use stories to get people to
bang
follow
everyone else's wives,
right? But they tell the followers a story so that they'll make that palatable. God told me I had to bang your wife, so
I gotta bang your wife. I don't
understand.
It's like God told me.
It's like, listen, if I don't bang your wife, the whole thing's we're all gonna die. So
comet or something is gonna hit us. So
I tried that; it never worked.
I gotta take one for the team here, guys. But
these people are incredibly talented. Cult leaders are so manipulative and smart. Like Hitler was smart. There's nothing wrong against saying that. He wasn't a good person. Obviously, he was smart. It takes intelligence to understand basically what you write about, right? I'm going to tell a story, and it's not as easy as just make up a story and everyone believes it. There's more to it, right? It's the showing it and in the repetition of it and the examples of it in life, and then every time a situation happens, you might tie it back to your story. So over time, it becomes more powerful. It's like an ongoing thing, right? A story. It's like with a branding. Apple, it's been around forever. It keeps going with it.
Yeah, I mean, there's like we were talking about before. There's different formats that you can tell a story. Like a parable is a story, or a fable is a story.
Define a parable.
So parable
was
basically, it was a short illustrative story. Very much like a fable, but it's what Jesus used. He used parables to explain to people the concepts that he wanted them to understand, or how he saw the world, or how he thought things should be in the world. So in the book, I kind of go in and break each of those down differently. Like some things are like proverbs are used to teach you wisdom, right? Fables are used to teach wisdom, but they're quite often used through what they call anthropomorphizing animals. So he quite often uses animals to tell the stories. Tortoise and the hare, another one.
Yep.
Sour grapes, that's a fox, right?
Goldilocks and the Three Bears.
Yeah. Yeah. So fairy tales again they're trying to teach us, was it Grimm's fairy tales, or whoever did all the fairy tales, like in the back in the Dark Ages. quite often that was telling a story to teach you a moral lesson. Don't fuck with witches, Hansel and Gretel, right? Like,
Yeah. Don't follow. Don't, just because they have candy doesn't mean everything's good.
Yeah. So there's tons of these things, and really it's they're all kind of similar, but you can also tell different types of stories. So like problem solution, like that. The camera keeps going in and out. It's like I haven't drank that much. Come on, camera.
That's just you, man. You're drunk.
Right. I'm just anyway. So they're all kind of doing different things using the format of story, but they're doing it in different ways. Like one is to teach a concept. The other is to using animals. The other's using short sayings. But anyway, so problem solution is a story. Hey, do you have a headache? Yes. Great. I've got aspirin. Right. Do you have a headache? No. Oh, well, I guess I can't sell you aspirin. Right. Like that's a very short story, but it comes in the format of the story, because in the story, the hero always has a problem. There's always a villain that has to be overcome. The person with the aspirin is essentially the guide saying, Luke, I'm going to teach you how to be a Jedi so you can overcome the worst father ever. And
right.
And so it's problem solution, conflict resolution, right? Like that's kind of what that's a shorter way to tell a story, but another format.
And you put your brand in there, and you want your brand to be the solution.
Exactly. Yeah.
And everyone gets it. Headache, aspirin. That's a good example.
Yeah.
Now, what's another example of a very simple product that the story is the solution? I'm trying to think, like Kleenex or I'm trying to think of I don't know, maybe like Altoids. Bad breath, take an Altoid, no more bad breath.
Right. Yeah. I mean, food
it's
quite
simple.
often uses simple stuff like, are you hungry? Yes.
Yeah.
Great. I got a burger.
Yeah. Thanks, Sky Pimp.
So yeah, like that, and that is where branding comes in, that like you want to become a part of your hero story, but how you do it, right? There's the right way and the wrong way, right? Like you don't want to be what was it, Volkswagen or Audi saying that they have truth in engineering, and then they find out that they lied about their emissions. It's like, well, that's the exact opposite of what you told me, right? So now there's trust loss, and the story that you told me about how you have truth in engineering is not true. You're liars. You're the exact opposite of what you said you were, and now the story changes around them, and then you start going into.
You want to know who I'm so happy got a public lashing? Was Wells Fargo. Wells Fargo. Fuck Wells Fargo. I like them now. But they went.
What?
You guys know about this? Dude, Wells Fargo, they were like this trustworthy bank, and they got in trouble big time. Actually, I'm not a big Elizabeth Warren fan, but I loved her when she was ripping on the CEO, because what they did was they made people open all these accounts, and they did that to me, man. And they screwed me over so many ways. And now they're fine with me, but they had to do basically a big apology tour through their public campaign, because because they did the same thing. Their story was, we're a truthful bank, we're honest, we're Wells Fargo. Turns out that they had this like structure where they were making their salespeople sell all these multiple bank accounts, and they had these weird rules where, like, if you don't transfer $15 from here, it's a fee. And they would try to say, get people to open more credit cards, more bank accounts, more transfers, more dumb rules to get fees and have more accounts. And they got in big trouble. And I don't think the CEO was fired, but he might have been. But it was about like 7-8 years ago. And now they've done a big like apology tour, and they're supposed to be like better now. And that was another example of a brand going against what they say they're all about. And it made me angry. That's my point. It's emotional. It's
right.
If a brand makes a promise and then they don't deliver on that promise, you get extra angry rather than just being bad to begin with.
Well, and then you take action, you like, I don't want to go with this bank anymore. I'm closing my accounts, or, I'm going to find somebody else. Like, so it's that action or that emotion that quite often leads to action. Well, I heard about this thing on the news. Now I'm going to go, protest, right? Like, or I'm going to boycott this brand. I mean, how many times has Disney been boycotted? Like from
Disney?
the 80s. Yeah, from the 80s.
I don't know about that. Tell me about one time
in the 80s
they
got boycotted for something. There was they've been boycotted several times. Star Wars fans boycotted them because they didn't like the new Star Wars movies.
Okay.
I can't remember what it was.
Wait. In the 80s, I'm trying to imagine boycotting Disney. It's like, we don't like Little Mermaid. I can't imagine. They're pretty wholesome.
Yeah, I remember hearing about this, but like I think I was like, I was like in high school or grade school or something. I can't even remember, but yeah, I remember like a bunch of people talking about how they were going to boycott Disney. Maybe Google it. You could,
it's like, don't watch ABC, and then it's like, sometimes no publicity is bad publicity, or court attention at all costs, as Robert Greene would say. But yeah, I mean, you can't go against your brand message. That pisses people off, and that's part of the storytelling, because you got people sold on this story, and it turns out, the difference between, I'm starting my company, here's my story, people like it, and then time goes on. Wells Fargo, it's been around since the 1800s. Disney, been around for a long time. It is very difficult to maintain that story as a money-hungry corporation. Or how would you? I guess Disney's probably done a good job at maintaining it, at maintaining their magical spirit.
Yeah,
but maintaining it, is there any strategy as far as creating one and then maintaining it, or are you more about just the beginning, the starting the story?
Yeah, I'm more about starting the story and using it in the right way, but also using it to communicate clearly, right? Like, speaking of clearly, there goes my camera. It's like blurry. So to maintain it, you have to have somebody in the organization who, maintains that story. That could be a storyteller, technically, who's like, it's my job to maintain the story. Lucasfilm has a whole story group inside their organization to make sure that all their books and everything in the Star Wars universe line up to these stories that, that when you have like different authors, right, doing different things, or people making video games or writing comics or making movies, that the story group is responsible to say, we never had, black lightsabers, right? Well, technically, I guess there is one now, but I'm just, like we're not, lightsabers don't shoot guns, right? Like, that's not part of the story. So don't try to do that, right? Like, they're responsible for kind of maintaining the world that has been created of Star Wars, although some would argue that they didn't do such a great job with the new trilogy. But that aside,
you like Star Wars, don't you?
I do. Yeah, you can't tell, but this is a Boba Fett bobblehead in a box.
Boba Fett, the bounty hunter.
Yes, and this is a stuffed Chewbacca doll.
I can see it now. I was wondering what that was in the back.
Yo, Pat does an awesome Chewbacca impression. Let's hear it, Pat. Let's hear it.
All right, you ready?
Pat, come on, do it. Yeah, we're ready.
All right, you ready?
He's never done a Chewbacca impression. I just wanted to put him on the spot.
That was my magic trick.
All right, so stories. I'm sold on the stories, right? Let's go back to the brain. Have you ever read Think and Grow Rich?
Napoleon Hill. Yes.
Napoleon Hill.
I think I read it. Yeah.
It's the inspiration for the show, Drink and Grow Rich. But essentially the book talks about the subconscious mind and the conscious mind. It's like, if your conscious mind doesn't know the difference between seeing something or just imagining something. But the ultimate point is, if you convince your subconscious mind of the truth over a period of time through repetition, if your subconscious mind believes that you are I don't know. I'm just going to use a wild example, like a submarine captain. Over a period of time, if you can convince it, then it will go towards that. Now, it's not going to happen overnight because you're not going to be in a submarine, but basically you can convince your subconscious mind who you are. I'm a successful person. I'm somebody who cares about others and helps others and gets rich doing that. You can convince your subconscious mind those things, and then that'll take over, right? Do you essentially agree with that principle?
Yeah, it's actually part of, so they have the concept of neurons that wire together, fire together. And so essentially it's saying it's kind of like that practice makes perfect. Like, yeah, like you can wire those neurons and get your brain kind of moving in the direction that you want it to through lots of different things, right? Like hypnosis, meditation, prayer, right? Like, and story just reinforces that. Like,
yeah.
And so yeah, it's true. I talk a little bit about it, about how we have mirror neurons, and when those start firing together, they start connecting. And so, yeah, your brain has what we call neuroplasticity. So you can basically change it and reshape it and do lots of things to it. Hence how you can use, story to create cults and make people stupid and brainwashed.
Pat still needs to be convinced on the principles that the conscious mind can change the subconscious mind. Right, Pat?
Correct.
Help me convince him.
Well, that's not specifically my area of expertise, but I know that, like I said, repetition is one of those things that will start to change your brain, right? Like that's why you.
But that takes conscious effort, meaning you're conscious, and meaning you have to. I'm at 12 o'clock every Wednesday. I'm going to take 10 minutes to think about this one topic. That's conscious effort, but it's also conscious, your conscious mind. So you have to do that to get it through to your subconscious mind.
Yeah, there's also, I've also read some stuff where writing down things, for whatever reason, taking the action of writing while you're thinking about it ties it into your brain better because you're taking an action while you're writing it. But again, that's not necessarily storytelling stuff. So it goes a little bit outside of my purview. It's just, but I am interested.
But it's along the same. It's along the brain thing. It's how the brain works. The brain's just a tool. It's just a tool. It's just like the computer thing that you're talking about. So I believe that 100%. Yes, and repetition. I believe writing something down, because what does writing do? It takes your eyes and it takes like 3 of your senses. You can't do anything else while you're writing, right? So if you're writing, you have to look and you have to move your hand. You can't. I guess you could be listening to something, which is another sense, but it basically takes all your senses. So you're focused on what you are writing, and that is why that's a conscious activity. And if you write something on the chalkboard over and over, like Bart Simpson, I will not lie, I will not lie. That works. Like saying something over and over to yourself, whether it's prayer, whether it's just, I want to be a millionaire. I'm going to tell myself I'm a millionaire. I'm going to convince myself. Telling yourself every day, envision affirmations. Every millionaire, every rich person does affirmations. It's just the things that you tell yourself.
There's a counter to that.
Okay,
it depends if you want to be doing that willingly, but the example you used was Bart Simpson. I will not lie. I will not lie. He's not writing that down for his own good. It's because he's in trouble in detention writing on the chalkboard. So forced repetition kind of causes conflict.
Sure.
You say so?
It's still better than not.
Because then the next episode, what does he do? He goes out and he lies.
I don't know the specifics. But
that's my counter conflict with that.
Okay, if he doesn't want to do it.
But voluntarily, like writing something down saying, I will do this, and like you fully believe that, then yes, I see the connection to that. But there is a conflict.
Yeah, I mean, if your teacher makes you do it, I mean, you're going to be thinking twice.
If you're in detention.
Next time you lie. Next time you lie.
Your hand's going to be hurting. Yeah.
And that's your subconscious mind is going to say to your conscious mind, yo, that line, man.
Remember how the hand felt?
Yeah, it's like twice about the line.
Okay.
And maybe he still does it, but he will be much more careful about
how he does it, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Because he doesn't believe it, but he might not believe it in his conscious mind or subconscious mind, but there's still something there that
a sense of emotion.
Yes.
Well, yeah, the subconscious is like, I don't want to get caught doing that again, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which means it got through.
Because of this consequence that'll happen if I do get caught.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And if you just are not Bart Simpson and you tell yourself you want to be a millionaire when you're 18, and you tell yourself that every single day up until you're 24, by that point in time, you're going to be the type of person who's going to be a millionaire. You know, whether you have the money in the bank or not, your attitude will be a business owner. Your attitude will be somebody who understands, oh, what should I do with my night tonight? Should I, watch sports, or should I listen to this audiobook about the principles of business and how to hack human brains? You start to become more engaged in the things that'll make you a millionaire, because that's what your subconscious mind wants you to do. Would you say that's accurate, Seth?
Yeah, exactly. It's like muscle memory, right? You gotta work that part of your brain out to get it in shape to do the things that you want it to do, and you have to give it the right information, the right stimulus. So yeah, I think all of that goes towards exactly what you're talking about.
My favorite thing in the world, Think and Grow Rich, is I was 19 years old. I was one person before I read the book. It took me probably 2 weeks, and I was a different person from then until now after I read that book. It's an incredible piece of art. And it basically just talks about this. Talks about it. I should read it again soon. Yeah, what made you want to write a book? And how was that whole experience?
I was just about to ask about that.
Yeah. So I've basically been a storyteller since forever. My mom likes to tell a story about how when she picked me up at school, like this is like preschool, the teacher came out and met her, and she thought, oh, my son must have done something. Why is the teacher coming out to meet with me? And she said, the way that she describes it, it might be a little bit over the top, but she was like, the teacher basically said that I did something that she'd never seen any of the other kids do, which was they would put up 3 pictures, right? And then the kids were supposed to tell a story. What do you see in these 3 pictures? Well, they put me up there and I see the 3 things, and then I start world building. I start creating backstory for the characters on these 3 things at like 4 or 5 years old. Like that's just how my mind works. It's like the 3 pictures are probably like a rabbit picking up a stick and handing it to his friend. And I'm like, the rabbit's name is Timmy. This is his friend, John. They're going to go play on the swings afterwards, and I'm just coming up with all this stuff. And yeah, the teacher was like, we've never seen any children do that. Usually we ask the children to tell a story. They tell exactly what they see in the 3 pictures, and then they're done. So fast forward to 2005. It was actually a web design agency at the time. So we're building lots of really cool websites, and I started working with a branding guy. His name is actually Martin Prouty. He was the head of global branding or international branding for GoDaddy. And we start working together on some stuff. And I remember one night we were having a meeting, and he's like, dude, you're a storyteller. Like, that is your thing. And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, every time I talk to you, you got a story about something. You explain concepts with story. And I was like, well, that's great. But like, how the hell do you make money as a storyteller? Like, that makes no sense to me. Right. Like nobody, like in my mind at that time, it was like, stories are great for movies and books, and your uncle who comes over and has crazy stories, like that's what stories do. Right. And I'm not going to be a screenwriter. I'm not going to write a book. But he goes, you need to read this book called Story Wars. Okay. So I read the book Story Wars, and I'm like, well, this is really interesting. So I read another book and another book and another book. And then I start going, well, is there any science behind all this? So then I read a research paper and another research and another and another and another. And like, I literally read like hundreds of research papers, and I was like, holy shit. like this story thing isn't just it's not just for kids, you know? So,
That's awesome.
so I kind of studied it for a long time before I even started going, okay, well, how can we use storytelling? And then I talked.
We're still working at the web design place.
Yeah, it was basically.
So in your off hours, you were doing this reading and studying.
Yeah, I'm always reading. Like I'm reading.
Love that.
Like multiple books. Me and Audible are like best friends. We hang out all the time.
You got the $14.99 a month for subscription.
Oh, dude, I buy that 3-pack. Like I hit that 3-pack like an addict. And so
give me more.
Yeah, I'm reading Unscripted right now, but DeMarco or something like that.
I don't know it.
Here. It's a really interesting book.
The thing I love about a book is the effort, the thought that goes into it. And DeMarco, you're in one of your blurry phases. Put it closer. Unscripted. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
MJ DeMarco is his name. Interesting book. So I've been studying this stuff, and then I started applying it. And I met a friend who was like, well, they do storytelling and branding. And I was like, really? So then I start studying branding and start studying that and start merging these things together. And then I start going, well, I want to start using this stuff for my clients. So I started using this stuff for my clients to write emails. Like that's one of the things that was actually a big turning point. Was
that was part of the web design agency? Was also email marketing?
No, this was after we had started to kind of transition. Like we started going, well, where can we apply story? Yes, we were a web design agency, but then we started kind of morphing into a branding agency. And so we started writing emails, helping our customers write emails. And we totally changed the way that we were communicating with the customers, right? Like we weren't writing an email going, hey, I'm a random stranger that you don't know, buy my product, please. Right? We were starting to use principles of storytelling. Not that we were like necessarily telling a story in the classical sense, but we were using bits and pieces of the hero's journey in how were you doing it.
Were you doing it through flows in the email marketing, like over a period of time telling the story, or in like one email?
We would do it in one email, but like we would keep it short. So like we wouldn't have, like some people write these really long emails and that works for some people. It depends on your audience, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we just started changing. I started helping my clients change how they were communicating. And then all of a sudden open rates are like double what the industry standard is. Click-through rates are 3 and 4 times what the industry standard is.
Did you have any pictures in there? Genuine question.
Pictures? What do you mean?
Like you send emails. Is it a bunch of words?
Yeah.
Or did you mix it? Just text. Just text.
Just text.
That means that they were really good stories.
Yeah, well, it depends on how you're communicating, right? Like I have a whole chapter of my book called Cold Emails and Pickup Artists, which is basically talking about how random strangers come and hit you up and try to get you in bed.
Oh my God, I just thought of oh wow, we got to okay.
Yeah. You had a story?
The art of the pickup. I will finish your thought on this emails. They doubled. The open rates and the click rates doubled.
Yeah,
when
open rates
you started
doubled,
telling stories.
click-through rates tripled. Yeah, and obviously that led to sales, and then it was like, okay, well we might have something here. Can we do this again? And so, like not every story works. I will say that it's not like, oh, I've created this magic bullet. Look at how amazing I am. No, it's like sometimes we've told stories and they've fallen flat on their face. It's like, well, it was the wrong story for the audience, or it was the wrong timing on that story. Whatever, right? Like sometimes, even a good story falls flat if nobody's willing to listen to it. So we started changing stuff. And then, and I started helping a bunch of different businesses using storytelling and started talking about that. And the businesses were interested. They were like, really, tell me more about the storytelling that you speak of, this strange new magical thing. It's like, I didn't create this shit. I just, I'm just kind of going back to the basics. And then it came to the point last year where it was like, man, I got so many ideas around stories, and there's so much information here that so many other people could find useful, that I was like, I got to write this book. And I had never been like, I want to be an author someday. Like, I honestly don't care if the book makes any money. I just hope it helps people. Like, it sounds stupid, but
you're so happy you wrote it, and you can, it's just out there in the world because you care about it that much.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I hope that people use it and utilize it, because I don't just, like, I explain the why, the what, and the how of story. Like, I don't just go, story is amazing, you should use stories, and then just kind of leave you hanging. I'm like, I go into examples and explanations of, like, how do you use the hero's journey to, write an email, right? Like, and so I dive deeper into that stuff and try to explain it in a way that people will understand it. Like, the book is 130 pages. Most people try to write a business book and it's 200 pages. I didn't need fucking 70 other pages to write the book, because all I'd be doing is like repeating myself, right? Like, I don't need to do that. Like, I need to give you the information and help you to understand it in a very simple way. And I try to do it in an entertaining way where, I'm cracking jokes half the time, because that's just me and my personality. Like, I hate reading business books where the guy's just sitting there fluffing his own nuts, like, in the introduction, like, and you're like, dude, I don't care. So I kind of, like, changed a lot of things. Like, the introduction to my book is called The Anti-Boring Ass Introduction, right? Like, I'm like, here's what to expect in this book. By the way, my book has a playlist on Spotify. You can read the book and listen to the music, and each song goes with each chapter. It's specifically chosen for that chapter. I'm like, awesome. Movies can have playlists or soundtracks. Why can't a book?
Yeah, soundtracks. Yeah, that's so true. So, that's actually a really good idea.
So I've never seen.
Did you think of that?
Do that. Yeah,
I've never heard of a book with a soundtrack.
Yeah, same. That's a great idea.
I'm actually going to be making a behind the scenes as like a bonus thing, like a making of, like you would get on a DVD, right? Like, where they interview the director and they're like, well, tell us about the movie and why'd you do this? I mean, kind of some of that's happening here in the podcast, but I want to, create that as a bonus extra that you either get when you get the book, or it's on the end of the audiobook, which there will be an audiobook. It's just, I haven't worked on it yet. I literally just got the book, like, formatted.
You're going to read it? You're going to read it? You're going to be the narrator?
Everything I've read says that's what I should do.
Right. That's what I've heard too.
Yeah, I'm assuming that's probably what makes sense. Like, people, I mean,
I will say, I've listened to a lot of audiobooks not by the author, and it is cool if it's by the author, but also, who cares? But also, you might save a buck if you do it.
Well, the best argument that I heard was that, like, it gives people an opportunity to hear your voice and hear what kind of person you are. The problem that I'm most worried about if I do an audiobook is that I'll just go way off script. You'll be getting the not the unabridged version, but the unedited version. Like,
who the fuck wrote this line? I meant to say this.
Yeah, exactly. Like, that would just totally be me. Like I actually had to tone the book down from, like, R-rated to PG-13, because, like, some of the things I was saying, like, people were like, that's really funny, but, like, you might offend some people that you said that. And I was like, okay, like, I understand keeping it in balance. Like, I don't want to, like, whitewash my book or whatever and make it seem like I'm, like, this totally prim and proper business guy. Like, no, I talk about like coked up cheetahs in my book. Like, I'm not that guy. Like, I left a lot of swearing.
Essentially, it's Chester Cheetah. He's coked up.
Yes.
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah. Chester.
Yeah. I mean, so I left a lot of swearing in the book. I left a lot of jokes. You know, like in the very first chapter, I talk about how, you know, we're going to peek behind the mind, like when Dorothy peeks behind the curtain. Except this time, let's hope the wizard isn't drunk and naked because the lawsuits were outrageous. You know, like this is how I'm describing stuff in my book.
I would like that a lot.
Yeah, and you know, one of the reviewers was like, "This is like Ryan Reynolds wrote a business book. Like, crazy." Like I was laughing my ass off and learning at the same time. Like, yeah, that's a good business book. That's the business book I want to read. That's why I wrote it this way. And this is it. It's just on brand with me as a person.
I love that.
So, yeah, that's awesome.
All right,
so much better than just the black and white.
Yeah.
All right, all right. You gotta give me 2 minutes here, right? Because I want to talk about something about stories that's fascinating, but I want to tell through a story. All right, give me like 2 minutes. You guys judge my story on a scale from 1 to 10. All right, this is about stories. It's about the art of the pickup, which I deeply studied. But I'm gonna tell it through a story instead of just telling you about it.
What do you mean the art of the pickup before you start?
You'll see.
Okay.
Girl,
all right.
Girl.
Okay.
I didn't have armpit hair until after all my friends, and early in middle school, didn't get a lot of girls because I was underdeveloped, a little shorter. As much as I was friends with all the guys with armpit hair, I was always jealous of them. As I got older throughout high school, I got a little taller, thinned out, and I remember the first time a girl thought I was handsome. My mom told me through her mom, and I was shocked that I even had this information. I was like, "Oh my God, I'm handsome!" And it was like this new information in my mind. And I was timid, shy. I had a little armpit hair at this time around 10th, 11th grade. Had some luck with girls. Drinking especially helped throughout high school. So I go to college. I go to Ohio University. And I want to hook up with chicks. There's so many girls. And I Googled, me and my one friend, Ryan Manley. We jumped on the internet and we just Googled, I don't know, just for fun. It's all we were thinking about. It was how to pick up chicks. And we found this guy named Mystery Method. He was a YouTube star at the time. This was 2009-ish. And we watched his videos. We watched his videos deeply. I got a lot of B minuses in my life. Basically got a B minus in every class in college I've ever went to. And I probably could have got some A's if I wasn't spending time studying this thing. I remember I had 5 or 6 loose leaf sheets writing down notes of how to pick up girls. The mystery method. I do deep
yes.
In the margins, lines. So I remember the tactics of what Mystery Method said of how to pick up girls. Now, Mystery Method, he's this guy. He has black fingernails. He has long black hair. He said he can go to a bar and make out with every 4 to 5 girls he talks to. He said he made out with 2 married women at one bar because of his tactics. He said he's the best at, now this is not anything to do with the art of relationships. It's everything to do with the art of the pickup at a social event, which could lead to a relationship. Maybe that's not what he talks about. It's the art of the pickup in a night. He's the master of this subject. He said he made out with 4 or 5 girls. So I listened to him. I took notes. I did everything I could to understand what this guy was talking about. There's a couple methods I remember. The one method was start talking to a girl at the bar and then immediately put your back on the wall so that she looks like she's talking to you. So it signals to everyone else in the bar that this girl is looking to like this guy. So if you start talking to the girl and then you take a step back and go, and you're leaning back and she's leaning forward, that signals to the other girls at the bar that you are the alpha. The girls want the alpha. And that was one tactic. But there's a couple tactics. But the second tactic was.
Is this him?
All right, let me try to remember the very specifics. It was you have to show. That's him. That's him, dude. That is him.
Yeah, that's what he looks like now.
Girls. Yeah, I mean, dude, I'm telling you, his advice really made a lot of sense. All right, so it was
Slash's younger brother.
This is how you pick up a girl at a bar. You have to show her a few things. You have to show her, one, that you're a leader of men. That means that you are a leader of men, as simple as it sounds, right? 2, you have to show an example. You have to be strong. You understand the biological reasons why women like love men at a caveman level. It's like strong, provide, leader of men. If I'm dating this person, I'm dating the whole tribe. They will all protect me. You have to pass along in a short period of time in a crowded bar these messages of I am this person to a girl, how do you tell a girl that you're a leader of men, you have lots of friends, you have a tribe who will all protect you, that you will provide, that you love your mom, you love your sisters and your family? How do you portray that to a girl in a 5-second conversation at the bar, 5-minute conversation at the bar? There's only one way to do it, and it's through stories. You have to tell a story to the girl. So this is a true story that I was telling to girls at the time. When I had a girlfriend in high school, this guy was like talking shit. This guy was like, yo, nice ass or whatever. And I was like, yo, fuck you. And he got out of the car and he was way bigger than me. And he was about to fight me. Right. And I was like, oh, fuck, dude, I'm going to get my ass kicked. So I was like, ugh. And this is true. Around the corner comes a couple of my friends. Not even my friends. It was this guy named Romy. He was on the football team. Big ass dude. He was like a running back, linebacker for the football team. I'm acquaintances with him. I'm not close friends with him. But this guy was looking for a fight. So I luck out, and the guy turns around the corner, and I'm about to fight this guy 10 times the size of me, who's going to definitely kick my ass. And I'm like, yo, Romy, this guy's trying to kick my ass. Romy comes, they fucking pound each other in the face. Like, they fucking go at it. And I'm like, oh, shit. Like, whew. And walk away. Romy's my boy. Like, and damn. So I got out of it. I got lucky.
You didn't jump in to help Romy?
Nah, he was good.
You just let him take care of it.
I mean, I was there. I was there for me to help. And Romy was not by himself. Romy was with a group of 4 or 5 guys. So Romy, if they, I wasn't gonna let the guy get hurt. There was 5 of us, 1 of him. But it wasn't.
I thought it was just him.
No. It was like he rolled up. This is actually an important part of the story, which I'll get to. He rolled up with 4 or 5 guys, and around the corner, out of nowhere, and he wanted to fight, and this other guy wanted to fight, so they fought. Right. So that's a good story, right? And it's entertaining, it's funny, but when you're talking to a girl at the bar, okay, that covers all the things. It says, 1, I used to have a girlfriend, meaning I'm romantically inclined. 2, I have friends that protect me, and it gets the whole tribe. It's a story that's quick and to the point that covers all the messages that you need to cover in the biologically wired story to pick up the girl to make her attracted to you. And so to get to the story, anytime you talk to a girl, you have to have a transition piece. So it'll be like, just bump into me. What the hell? What are you going to fight? You want to fight? No, I'm just kidding. You've been in a fight? And they're like, I'm not been I'll be like, no, I've never been in a fight either. But let me tell you the story this one time. And then you tell the story. So you are just randomly talking to this girl you bump into. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, you drop this story and that covers all of these biological, evolutionarily wired things that makes a woman attracted to you through a story. And dude, I made out with so many chicks. Like through that same story over. And I did it every time because I was at a big college and, there's no overlap. And that's the power of stories. It portrays a very powerful evolutionary message through your story. So my one friend, Nico, never gets chicks. I'm telling him, dude, research mystery method, find the 4 to 5 things that you need to cover in a story, make up a story that covers those things, and then think about your transition piece to that story. And you're gonna get laid. And just like anything else that you do, you got to practice a little bit. You got to practice, but it's about the transition to the story, and it's all about the story. So that's the end of my.
It's all about the story.
All right, 1 to 10. How good was that story? Both of you guys judge me, Seth and Pat. 1 to 10. How was that story?
I would say there's probably some elements that you could use to enhance the story, but
I banged her right there in the bathroom.
I'm not sure how that would affect me. But one thing that makes a story really powerful is what is ending it with, and here's what I learned, right, out of that situation, right? Like, what is your takeaway? What did you gain from that experience? That's what most people will connect with. right? Even the girl will probably be like, oh, that's really interesting. I never thought of that.
In the pickup sense, the point of the story was not the lesson. The point of that you are cover these.
Right, but I'm saying
I'm romantically inclined, whatever they were.
Right, but I'm saying if there's a takeaway, then it also makes you seem more intelligent because you're smart enough to be introspective and to learn from your mistakes. Right, that there's got to be something evolutionary there, where it's like, oh, this guy won't keep eating the red berries. That's good, you know.
Well, it's like I think my ending was so. Then Romy was my boy from then on, and I mean, it was more about getting laid than you know.
Sky Pimp rated 7.5. We're all laughing, and you got the girls. Fair score.
I'll take a Pat. What do you give me?
I am going to give you an 8.3 on that score, on that story, only because I had originally rated it a 7.3, but the fact that this is the guy that you learned it from, you get an extra bonus point. You're saying this guy's like so fascinating.
Dude, as a young single man going out to the bars, you should study this shit.
Yeah, I would give it an 8 because it works, right? Like that just off the bat, you know, like you said, you're hitting all the points.
Tried and true.
And the story works. I would say an 8. And the reason I'd say an 8 is, like I said, I think, you know, you can always improve a story. There's always little tweaks and little adjustments you could make. I actually used to tell the story about like this crazy going down on a scuba diving trip with like a raging alcoholic, and which always, you know, like just starting the story, the way the story starts, right? Like it's like, oh, this is going to be interesting, right? Like, yeah, like I literally met this guy in the airport. I was going on a big dive trip with a bunch of people. And we found out, like, he and I both got there early. I had never met him before, but we were going on the same flight. And the lady was like, you need to switch flights or else you're not going to be flying down until tomorrow. And so this guy comes up and he's like, oh, are you changing the flight? And I noticed he had some, like, dive branded gear. And I was like, oh, are you going on the trip to Cozumel? And he's like, yeah. So I'm like, great, cool. I guess we'll fly down there. So we basically have to wait 2 hours to switch to the next plane. So he goes, let's go to the bar and get a drink. And I'm like, okay. Well, we go to the bar and he must have downed like 10 Bloody Marys. It's like 11 o'clock in the morning. Like our table is actually filling up with like empty Bloody Mary glasses. And I haven't even had one drink. Like, so I'm like, okay, it's vacation. You know, this guy's cool. He's taking it easy. We get on the plane. Bar service does not stop. He just keeps drinking and drinking and drinking. We got a several-hour flight because I think we were in Dallas or something. We got a several-hour flight down to Cozumel, and he just keeps ordering drinks, keeps ordering drinks. He passes out on the plane. He wakes up when we land, and I'm like, hey, man, do you know the name of the hotel? Playa something. Great. We're in a foreign country. We don't know where our hotel is. I mean, it's an island, so, you know, we can figure it out. I was like, do you speak Spanish? Nah. I was like, I don't either. I actually took Japanese in high school, of all things. Super helpful, right?
Yeah.
So we get out of the thing, and we know that we need to go to the main strip because there's just kind of a main strip on Cozumel where all the hotels and the restaurants are and everything. And so we're like, I guess we'll just go down here. So we get down there, and he's like, hey, let's go to the store real quick. And I'm thinking, oh, you're going to start eating food because you passed out or something. No, he buys like a bottle of Jack or some shit. We spend the next 2 hours in the fucking middle of the night wandering in and out of hotels going, is there a name under like this person in like half English, half Spanish? Like it was like miserable. It was just, and like he's stumbling around at this point. Right. And then he'd also bought a 6-pack of beer. And I'm like, what the fuck, man? Like, I'm with this stranger who is just shit-faced in a foreign country. We don't know where our hotel is. We have no Spanish between the two of us. Like, there's no way this is going to end terrible, right? Like, and we finally find the hotel, right? Like, the people are like, yeah, oh, you're with this party. And we're like, oh, thank God. Can we get our hotel? And so we ended up rooming in the same room. And it's late. It's like 1 a.m. And he's like, hey, do you want to have a drink? The fuck, man? You've been drinking all day. Like, I just want to go to sleep. Well, he starts drinking. He's like literally sitting in bed, popping open his 6-pack that's probably piss warm by this point, right? And I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna go to sleep now. And then he starts telling me about his wife and his divorce and how like his life is shattered because she left him, and how like he found her creating this infidelity, or this or in this infidelity situation, actually caught the two of them together. And
his eyes.
And yeah, like
Yikes.
And so like he's devastated. Like, he's drinking, and this is what I begin to realize. He's drinking, he's on this trip, he's trying to escape his pain. He's drinking to numb his pain. This is why this activity is happening. He's not actually an alcoholic. He's a man who's struggling and hurting, right? And so I realized at that point that like I need to stop judging people. Like, I'm thinking he's an alcoholic. I'm thinking he's an asshole. I'm like, I don't know what's going on in his life until he actually tells me. And then I realize I'm actually the asshole in the situation. That
is what you learned.
So all right.
That is how
that's the lesson. You got a lesson on it. So that's a good example. That's a good example of the lesson.
Exactly. And I used to tell that story with a punchline. I used to make him the butt of the joke, right? Because you can tell stories different ways. You can craft them different ways. It's still a true story, right? But I led you into it thinking, this is going to be hilarious. Yeah,
dude, I'm disappointed that you didn't go drunk scuba diving. I'm going to give it a 7 because I thought he was going to be fucking wasted and be like, all right, yo, let's go scuba diving. And
actually,
and also, swear to God, another part of the story that I was confused about the whole time is probably my fault. What was your relationship to this guy?
He was a part of the dive, the group. There was a group of people going on a dive trip.
That was probably
the only two that got to the airport early enough to switch planes.
Okay.
So the rest of them came down the next day. That's why we didn't know what the hotel was.
Gotcha.
Right? Because the people who had all the information were supposed to be.
Why didn't you know? Okay. Is every element of that story true?
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I used to tell the story. No, it was. I mean, it was like insane. Like I was like, and it was the first time I'd ever gone out of the country by myself. So I was like,
the story's about not judging other people.
Yeah.
I was waiting for the hookers to show. Yeah, I was looking for more of a comedy bit. But now I'm like, but that did comedy. Oh, don't judge. It's like, oh, I'll remember that, and I'll stick that triggered the 7 parts of my brain or whatever.
Yeah, it's a storytelling device called the pink elephant, where it's almost like misdirection. Like you do it on purpose, and it's like, look over here, bam, like that story creates an impact, right? And
yeah. Because you feel like a jerk for wanting him to get eaten by a shark, wasted. Because that's what I was thinking. I was laughing, and then it's like about judging others, and I'm like, oh, I was judging others. Damn. I'm the asshole.
But I used to tell the story with making him the punchline of the joke about like something he said. And I'm like, and I would almost end the story like, and you will not believe what this motherfucker said to me while he's sitting in the bed there, just smashed off his ass. And then I would tell the joke and it would be laughing and whatnot.
How could I change my story to be a lesson? It's like, and then I learned that you should not treat women.
It doesn't always have to be you should not do something, right? It could be like a positive lesson.
No, it's just
right.
interesting.
You could say
it's interesting to have the two different angles to it.
That's you could say something along the lines of like, and that day I learned what good friends I have. Right? That's a takeaway. Like you don't have to be like, I learned not to yell at people in their cars because they might beat you up. You know what I mean? You can make it as simple as that. So it like there's a lot of flexibility in a story, right? Like, like there's just some stories that you just tell just because they're interesting, right? Like I can tell another one if I don't know how much time we have. I don't know. I mean, we've been going for almost an hour and a half here, but
whatever. There's no limit.
So when I was 22, I was a rave DJ, and I was worked with a group of guys who were all we all worked together. So like one guy did drum and bass, one I did trance, another guy did house, another guy did this, right? And we got invited to do this rave up in Seattle, and 1,500 people show up. So it's a pretty good party. Like there was this like minor DJ that was supposed to come up, and he was going to play the big set at like 10 or 11 o'clock or whatever. I can't remember what time it was. It was late. And so this bought the guy the ticket, send somebody to the airport to go pick him up. Doesn't show up. No show. So they check with the airline. Never got on the fucking plane. So I had already done my set. Like I was like an amateur DJ. I literally did the opening set, right? Like I'm the opening act, and I did my set for an hour. I had an hour planned out, right? Like that was it. I do an hour, the next guy does an hour, the next guy does an hour, the next guy does an hour. So the guy that's leading the group comes up to me and he's like, we'll just call him Steve. Steve missed the flight. He's not here. You want to do a set? And I was like, really? Like I'm doing the main set. Like, like when I did my set, there was probably 500 people there. It's now tripled since then, right? Like I went on
the main event.
Yeah,
the main event.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay, I guess so. So I'm like, man, I gotta play the best fucking set of my life, and I already played my set. Like, I blew my wad, if you will. Like, I got to figure something out. And I used CDs, right? Like I was high tech.
Oh wow!
Like I had the CD DJ 500s. So I'm like, oh shit! What do I do? I got to play the set. Like I get asked like 10 minutes before somebody needs to get up there and start producing music. Like the other guy's just kind of starting to wind down his set or whatever he's doing. And so I got up there, I went through my CDs, figured something out, got up there, and I played the best set of my entire fucking life for 1 hour in front of 1,500 people. Like I am dancing around, I'm jumping up and down, I'm running effects on all this stuff. We got laser lights going, we got glow sticks everywhere. People are just like loving it. They're like getting into the buildups and all the breakdowns and everything. And it just like, it was the most mind-blowing experience. And at the end of it, I popped open the CD player and took out the pre-mixed CD that another guy had mixed and walked off the stage.
Oh God.
Nice.
And I had so many people come up to me afterwards and tell me that was the most amazing set they had ever heard.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks. And I literally was like, yeah, thanks, man. It was pretty good, wasn't it? But like, yeah, it was this a remix CD called Trans Global Nation Volume 2. And it was just over an hour. And I just fucking put that thing in, and I'm like running effects on the filters, and everything. And
DJ press play.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and I remember talking to the guy, the head DJ, who was kind of like my mentor, and I was like, I cannot believe I just pulled that shit off. And he's like, they got what they paid for. Like, what else is there? They wanted to have a good time. You gave them a good time. But yeah, I just stood up there and bullshitted 1,500 people. So Is there a takeaway?
What's the moral? What's the moral? Yeah, the moral story.
No, I don't. You know,
it's a different type of story.
Yeah,
it's more funny. It's more.
Yeah, exactly. It's like there's kind of a surprise ending or an aha.
Work smarter, not harder.
Both of your stories had both of your stories had surprise endings.
Yeah,
is that a key to a
that's
story?
just me. That's just me. I'm a giant surprise ending, I guess.
I mean, so, it's impactful. It's impactful to have a surprise ending.
Yeah. Well, it's a little bit of, I mean, I guess, so the takeaway here is, since you asked, I think the takeaway is that I can work fast under pressure. Like, I had to come up with something. It wasn't
how'd you get that CD?
I just had it because I liked, so I spun like what we called uplifting trance. And so I had a bunch of like these pre-mixed CDs, and I was like, because that was kind of the rage. Like, if you were into electronic music, like DJs would put out these pre-mixed CDs, and they'd have. I
most likely was not alive with the CD stuff.
This was 2000.
All right, I was alive.
2000.
Yeah, I was 11.
Yeah. So, I was like 20, 22.
I'm just ripping on CDs because I'm young and hip.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, so yeah, they were already pre-mixed. They were already beat matched. Like, you didn't have to do anything. Like, one song just transitioned into the next song. And so, yeah, I just stood up there doing this.
like get ready for this one. Get ready for this one. Right?
Yeah. Yeah,
and
exactly.
You probably portrayed as much surprise as the audience, because you didn't necessarily know, unless you heard it before, like what was about to drop.
I had listened to that. Album.
So you knew when to be like.
So
like
I knew when it was going up and when it was going down, and when it was gonna drop, and everything. And,
so you're essentially like a conductor, and you're portraying it through that.
Yeah.
A DJ's got to bring the energy with that stuff too.
Yeah. You don't want your DJ standing up there with his shoulders hunched, staring at the
let's go, and then you just yell, "Let's go" once in a while or something like that.
Yeah. I would just I would do all that. Like I said, there's a mixer panel, and so you could run filters through the mixer. So I'd run filters on top of the songs. And
I can't tell if you actually ran mixers or not in this story. Did you?
Yeah. Well, so it was two Pioneer CD DJ 500s. One had a CD in it that was just spinning and playing. The other one, I just kept popping open, pretending I was taking CDs in and out of it. And then the mixing board in between, like, I could put the sound up like this, left and right, even though
you were actually doing that.
Like, I wasn't actually mixing anything, but I was like, there was filters like flanger.
Okay, you were actually doing the filters.
Yeah, and I could turn up a knob and make it like make the sound flange. Or,
okay,
or
so
echo.
you were valuable.
So I was doing a little bit, but but like I learned I could I could work fast on my feet, but I also learned that like it really didn't matter at the end, because like my friend said, he was like, they got what they paid for. They wanted to come, dance, have a good time, listen to good music. Did it matter if I was mixing the beats together or not? No. Like, as long as I was playing good music that they liked, I was performing the service I was hired to do. That's what a DJ does. So
a bunch of guys out in the crowd, they watched Mystery Method. They went out, they used the tactics, and they got laid because of your music, and also because of their pickup tactics.
So man, it comes full circle.
There you go. Pat is gonna run home and search Mystery Method tactics going into the weekend.
I don't need the mystery man. That's the thing.
All right.
I don't need the mystery man.
All right. I mean,
he's like he's got it on lockdown.
All right. Who's got some final thoughts? Pat.
You got to teach me the DJ skills rather than the mystery man.
Oh, dude, mystery man over DJ. Just get a good CD.
I think you probably get laid pretty well either way. I think is the answer.
Yeah.
All right, Seth. What's your what's your final message? I mean, I think if anyone has listened to this whole thing, they understand. I think they believe, if they didn't believe before, that stories are important in business, but also in any time you're trying to portray a message. The fables, getting laid. He was making a host feel like an asshole because he was judging an alcoholic, and then he was about judgment. It's like stories are powerful. They're the best way to communicate. And like you said, cavemen. So I'm sold on the entire message. And say something awesome.
Something awesome. Yeah, I the book will be coming out October 15th on Amazon. So it'll be print and Kindle. And if you would like to check out the book early, you could go to storyfyagency.com. So that's STORIFY agency. If you don't know how to spell agency, you probably shouldn't be worrying about reading a book. So you can download the first chapter. No, it's not a pre-sale, but you can get the first chapter, get the flavor of the book, learn about neuroscience. Like, really, this isn't bullshit what I'm saying when I'm saying you can hack humans, right? Like, it sounds hyperbolic to say, oh, you can hack humans, whatever. It's like, no, neuroscience says you can. And so the first chapter is about the neuroscience. You can get that. Just go there, put in your name and email, and yeah, we'll give you the first chapter.
Give me the domain one more time.
I know how to spell it. STORIFY agency.com. It's a bright yellow site.
Download it. Yellow. All right, awesome. You got me in, and dude, I'll buy your book. Mark my words. And if I forget, remind me when it comes out. You got my word.
Okay. All right. Yeah, we'll do, man.
And I will post about it and ship.
Cool. Thank you. I appreciate it. Hope you guys had fun today.
I did, man.
Awesome stuff.
I did.
Thanks for coming on, Seth. That was awesome.
Thank you.
Pat, sign us off.
All right, everyone. This has been Seth Erickson. If you haven't heard by now, How to Hack Humans, a storytelling book for startups. This guy's the best to ever do it. This has been Drink and Grow Rich.
This one's on me, let's go downtown tonight. One shot, two shots, I don't really know if I'm counting right. We drink it down so we can live it up. Why? Cause you never know what tomorrow brings in this crazy life. This life